really need to forgive someone? I think it's a really important thing to think about. It's at the center of gospel reading today. You know, often it's a very common thing, just in case you thought you were alone in this, when people come to confession, a very common thing that people struggle with is trying to forgive someone, right? And it's like they want to, right, but they can't, or they're not ready to do that yet. And so one of the first things I think is important to lay out what forgiveness is that first it's a process, right? I think in our own contemporary, context, we've highly subjectivized forgiveness, right? Like it's just a feeling I have. Like I feel like I forgive you or something, right? Like we do this with love too. We do this with a lot of things, right? We make it completely like inward and it's just me, like that's, and that's just really how things are. So it's not really how relationships are, right? So what is forgiveness? Is it just, I don't feel mad at you anymore? I don't hate you, right? Is that what we mean when we say like, I forgive somebody? What we see as an image here with Jesus is that what's tied together in his entire ministry is when he heals people, right? Whether it's healing some sort of physical ailment or it's liberating from some sort of oppressive and demonic spirit, right? There's almost always forgiveness of sins connected to that. And so one of the things we can say right out from the start is that forgiveness is transformative. It's really important, especially since we live, in a culture that's, very much dominated, whether people realize it or not, with certain sort of like, certain Christian ideas, certain Protestant ones. For example, like this idea that, you are forgiven, you're not actually righteous, but God just considers you righteous. He forgives you and treats you as if you are something, right? So it's, this is the difference between, you say, like de facto and de jure, right? Of these things. So there's an idea that forgiveness is just sort of, I'll just pretend, right? Like forgiveness is this pretend game that I'm going to play with you. I'm going to pretend like the thing you did never happen. And perhaps there's some room for that of being part of the process, right? That I need to sort of, like start acting like a thing is, if I want it to be that way. But to reduce it to that impoverishes this understanding of what forgiveness is. And what we clearly see with Jesus is that forgiveness goes hand in hand with some real transformation of the person, right? And I think the way to think about what forgiveness is that often when we say forgiveness is, I'm deciding right now that I'm going to begin the process of making this relationship with you right again, as it was in the past, and maybe even better than it was. And to do that, right, requires you an incredible amount of vulnerability and humility in that moment. And both of those aren't possible unless we somehow make a sacrifice. And the sacrifice is the slaying of our own ego in that moment.
Ego. Oh.
There we go, a new word. And so what forgiveness is a death and a resurrection, right? The possibility for a relationship that's broken to be mended back together. The way this happens is the same way Christ renews all things, is that it's a death and a rebirth. And so humility, right, to humble myself, right, is a death of the ego. And if we're to put that to death in that moment, because it is very much, because to reach out to forgive someone is a risk, right? This is often part of why it's hard to forgive someone, is because it's a little bit dangerous, especially if there's real harm involved in that relationship. And so it requires, again, the willingness to take on potential risk for myself requires some level of selflessness to do that for the sake of the other person in that relationship. And so in order for forgiveness to fully happen, it has to be some death and rebirth, some sort of transformation of the person. And this is what's true. We realize that there's no way to grow, right? There's no way to be healed or transformed that doesn't require a crucifixion, a death of some kind. And so we see we see that in the gospel with Jesus was an image here of what forgiveness is. That it's the acceptance to begin the process of the death of my ego in order to rescue that relationship. That I'm willing to make that sacrifice, right? In the hope that things can be put back together again as best they can. And so what does that mean? That means, we see it with Jesus. It means we have to love people and be willing to do that with people who are not very lovable or likable, who are annoying and difficult, right? Who probably very likely don't deserve, right? Any of the sort of love or second chances that we're given. But the real source of our courage to forgive other people and to enter down this process of some sort of death and rebirth with them, ourselves, is the fact that we know, and this is at the core of why we call it good news, that we don't deserve anything. That absolutely everything we have is a gift. And that we ourselves, right, have fallen short in so many ways that we see and don't see of our potential, right? And that's exactly what sin is. It's a falling short. It's a missing of the mark of what our real potential is. And we know that we've been forgiven exceedingly. And so it is our own realization, right, of Christ's forgiveness. And I mean this word realization in both senses, that it recognizes a reality that already is, right, that we're forgiven, right, and realization as it makes real that thing at the same time. It makes real that we have tasted and participated in the grace of that forgiveness, right? And what is that forgiveness that Christ gives us? Is it merely just being alleviated from the guilt of feeling bad about a thing? No, it's a forgiveness that has changed us, right? And that's the source of our ability to forgive others, is that Christ died and rose again for us to put that relationship right, and so that we know that way of the cross, the way of death and rebirth, works. And that we can do it with other people, and we can do it in all the areas of our life. That's good news, because what that means is there's second chances. It means that things can be different, right? That's our joy. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to God.